Hello and welcome to another webinar from the Affinity Webinar Series. Today we'll be covering various elements of purchase order processing. The steps we'll cover today are also further explained in our Compass user manuals, so feel free to refer back to those should you want any more detail. My name is Julie Bilodeau and I'm part of the Affinity support team. I prepared for you a 1-hour webinar where we'll be covering the following scenario of processing purchase orders. So we'll be doing a purchase order process overview, a purchase order page, and then from that entering an order. We'll be receiving on a PO, invoicing on that PO, and then processing some returns. The manuals that I'll be touching on are Manual 13, Purchase Processing, 15, Purchase Invoices, and 16, Purchase Credit Memos. After that, I want to show you briefly how the GL entries post after we receive an invoice. And I'll touch briefly on an issue that we've received in support under our common support issues category of our webinar. And then afterwards, we'll conclude and I'll give you some more information on how to give us some feedback on this webinar and how to reach us at Affinity Support. Now let's begin an overview of the PO or purchase order process. I thought I would start this webinar with showing you this overview because it's all the steps that are really involved in processing a purchase order, and then we can get down into the details of each step. So first we start with a purchase order. It's created when you're ordering products from a vendor. You'll want to create this in the system. Then we're actually going to physically receive product from the vendor. And of that, it actually produces, once you've posted this, it's actually producing a nav document called a receipt, a posted receipt. So I just thought I'd include this column to show you the outcome, the documents that are created as a result of posting at these points in the process. So when we receive an invoice from a vendor, we're going to then create an invoice using the PO, and the result of posting that is we're going to get a posted purchase invoice. Then eventually someone in AP is going to want to pay the vendor, and the AP clerk will then use the invoice that we posted in this stage to generate a payment. Most of us use checks when we do that payment. You don't have to. It's actually not really considered a document, but I just thought I'd enter it here to say a check is generated as a result of this process, or an EFT payment, or however it is you pay your vendors. Now you'll notice in the returns, we can process returns at any time. Once we've received or an invoice or a payment is made, a return can be processed. And I'll be showing you that process too in this webinar. So now that you have an overall view of the process, let's dive into the details of each step. So first we're going to create a new purchase order. And from that we're actually in the process of entering it. So let's head over to Compass Nav and I'll show you how to do just that. To process a new order, you have to create a new document called a purchase order. So we're going to press New here in the ribbon, and it's going to create a blank form of a purchase order. You'll see here it says purchase order. So I'm going to tab off, and the number you'll see is going to auto-generate. So we're going to go through each fast tab. These are our fast tabs: general, lines, invoicing, shipping, etc. So first let's start with general and explain each fast tab to you as we go in. So the general fast tab relates to the entire purchase order, and it's completed before you do the lines, so that's why it's first in the list. So from here we're going to select the vendor in which we're ordering. So I'm going to order from Acme Company. You'll notice the vendor information all updates automatically when I choose that vendor number. Now the posting date I'm going to leave as today because that's actually the date we're ordering product from this vendor. I could put in a vendor order number should I have one already from the vendor. It's optional, it's actually not needed to process, but if you have it, it's nice to add more information in. The more information, the better. So now if you actually have, you can do here show more fields, and there's actually more fields on this general fast tab. I'm going to point out here the purchaser code. If you have a purchaser that's normally deals with this vendor, you could actually add their credentials, like their initials rather, to the vendor record, and that's why it's automatically populating here. If not, you could always choose the purchaser here and leave it at that. So now I'm going to skip lines for now. We'll come back to that, and we're going to go to the invoicing tab. So here's where you can identify the pay to vendor. Should it be different from the buy to vendor? So it's normally not the case, but just in case you actually need to pay another vendor, then you can change that here. This is where who your check will actually go out to for the AP clerk to process. In this case, it's the same, the vendor is the same as whom we're buying from. We're paying the same vendor we're buying from. Just bear in mind that should you want to change it, the vendor you're paying needs to already be entered as a vendor in the system so that they appear on this list for you to choose. So in this case, I'm going to leave it the same. Now the retail site dimension, it could populate automatically based on your vendor record, but if not, you should enter a value in this field. This identifies the retail site to which the purchase relates to. So if you only have one retail site, populate this field anyway. It's just not a good idea to leave it blank. So I'm going to put main location. Now you'll notice the tax liable and tax area codes here. You'll always need to have tax liable flag on and a tax area code, so just ensure that that's there. This is actually automatically defaulting from the vendor record. Now, quick note on payment terms. This is automatically updating based on the vendor record. Just make sure that it's there, that it populates. If it's empty, it actually won't show up to be paid on any aged payable report. So make sure that you have these populated as well. Now, moving on to the shipping tab. So the shipping fast tab, you'll notice, has defaulted to have a ship to name of location 1. And this is where the product is going to be received. This is actually defaulting from the vendor record as well. So make sure that this location is populated accordingly. We're assuming now that location 1 is the location that's going to be receiving the product. And again, if you only have one location, make sure that it's entered. Make sure there's a value here. Now the foreign trade fast tab, what we really want to pay attention to here is the currency code. It looks counterintuitive, but this is correct. The location code, when it's empty, it means local currency, which is our home currency. So in this case, it means Canadian. So we're going to leave it as is unless I'm dealing with any other vendors outside of Canada. I may see USD on here. I may see euros on here. Whatever works for this order, populate it as accordingly. In this case, we're local currency, so we're going to leave it as is. Now you'll notice a prepayment fast tab. I'm not going to be touching on that today. It's normally not used for normal purchasing and receiving. So we have another document that covers that. So feel free to go and check that out. So now let's move to actually entering the PO, which is what the lines are really all about. So once the header is complete, when we say header, we're referring to the general fast tab. So once all of this information is complete, we're going to start entering our lines. You'll notice there's a type column here. And what this is it gives you different types of purchases. So first you can make a GL purchase. So these are for purchases that are non-inventory related, like advertising, and you're just going to post to a GL expense account. Item is what we tend to use and what I'll be showing you today. Fixed asset, just so you know, will allow you to purchase fixed assets as well, and you could also process your item charges through POs as well. But in this case, we're going to choose item. Now the number column will automatically populate based on the type that we choose here. So when I drill down, these are all of the items I have in the system. So I can choose any item I like. So let's buy some super plant. You notice the location code is automatically defaulted based on my vendor record. And here's where we're going to enter the quantity. So let's say we're going to buy 5 bottles of super plant. And here's my direct unit cost, also pre-populated based on the item that I've chosen here. This is actually pulling from the data on the item record. Tax group code automatically populated from the item record as well. this is a taxable item. And now the line amount including tax is actually populating based on the quantity times the direct unit cost excluding tax, and that's what I get. And here's my tax liable and tax area code. Always good to keep it on the line to make sure that the tax liable is checked so that it refers to here. I could actually move this column over this tax group so I've got all my taxes together. Now, one thing I want to point out, you got quantity to receive, which is defaulting to the total quantity of my PO, quantity received, quantity to invoice, and quantity invoiced. These two will always pre-populate based on the quantity that I've entered. And I'll speak more to that in a little bit. I just wanted to point out, notice how they're populated and how the quantity received is 0 and quantity invoiced is 0. Now you could always add more items here of what you're ordering. So let's order some Roundup, 2 tons, and we can order some fertilizer. We'll just order 4 bags. Now if you ever need to delete one of these lines, you can do so by right-clicking, highlight the line you want deleted, right-clicking and choose Delete Line. And it'll ask and you can say yes. Okay. So once you've got all of your PO lines in, you can go to Statistics in the ribbon. And this will give you an overview of all of the data that's in your lines. So you can see our amount excluding tax, our tax amount, our total including tax, and our total quantity. Make sure that you review this before you post or before you leave this page so that you have it all correct, because you don't want to move forward if it's not correct. Okay. Now once you're happy with your PO, you can always print it, and that's where you come to the home ribbon and you can click print here and post your PO. And print your PO. Now just a quick note about printing. You'll notice there's number of copies here is 0. This means you're only going to get one output. There's no copies. If you were to press 1, you're going to get 1 copy. So you'll get 2 outputs. Okay? And that's all I'm going to really say about that. I mean, the rest is pretty self-evident. You can print your company address or you can archive this document, which means it's basically going to save a copy of this as it is in this state in our purchase order archives. So that's basically how we enter a PO into the system. And now let's move on to our next step. So now that we've created a new purchase order and we have it in the system, we're now going to pretend that time is marching on and we're going to receive our product from our vendor, and we're going to reflect this in the system. And in order to do so, we're going to receive against the PO we just created. And we like saying like it's like one-stop shopping, because really you're doing all your receiving and invoicing from the PO. It's just one stop, one place for you to go to process your what you've received and what you're invoicing. So now I'm back in my purchase order list and time has moved on, and I'm going to select the PO I want to receive against, and then I'm going to press edit. So this brings me back to my purchase order, as you can see. And what I need to do here is I'm going to need to update my header posting date just to reflect the actual date I'm on. So I'm going to say it's now January 16 and I've received the product. And so now I'm going to go to my lines. I'm going to say, yep, I received Super Plant. I ordered 5, but I've actually only received, I'm actually only receiving 2. And for my, my fertilizer bag, I've ordered 4 bags and I'm receiving 2 bags. So what you would do is update each, just as I've each one of your PO lines, I'm going to update the quantity to receive to the actual quantity received. So once all the lines are up to date with the quantities, I'm going to post a receipt. So there's post here in the home ribbon, and you can post and print as well if you want to copy it, if you want to print out of that, but I'm just going to post. And I'm going to receive only, because that's all that's happened. I've only received product and I've received 2 of each. So I'm going to say okay. And I have a dimension error, which you might also get. So what I do is I read the dimension code. So it looks like retail for item 1007, which is our last one. So I'm going to go line dimensions, and then I'm going to fill in the retail site dimension. You may or may not get this. I want you to see what it is to correct it. In case you don't get it, then your dimensions are all there and populated, which is great. If you do get this error, it's not. So you'll have to go back to this item and populate the item dimension for retail. Okay, so you don't get that error again. So now I'm going to try to post and receive again. There it goes. And what you'll notice now is my quantity received has been updated with the 2 that I've just posted, and my quantity to invoice is now well, it's still at the original quantities because I haven't invoiced yet, right? I've only received, okay? So now what's happened, now that we've just posted our receiving, is we've actually generated a posted receipt. So if you want to see that posted receipt, the quickest way is to go to Posted Documents, and you'll notice there's Posted Purchase Receipts here in the menu. And what I'm going to do is sort by the latest one on top. So you see my Acme company. I can double click or press View or Edit to open this page, and you'll see here are the 2 that I've received. Okay, so that's how you can see your posted purchase receipts. There is another way, in case you're wondering, by seeing the posted receipt on our item. So let's go to our item super plant, and what I'm going to do is go to the ledger entry for that item. And you'll notice here in the ledger entry, as I sort to the latest one, some people have posted in the future, here's my posted purchase receipt as well. Okay, you see my quantity of 2 for this item, and I could navigate on that, and I can go to my posted purchase receipt here and show entries, and it will actually bring me to the same page where I can see this is when I received my 2 super plant. And then I can notice, oh, I've got another item I received as well, and that was 2 of the fertilizer bags. Okay, so those are the ways that you can see that document, that nav document we called posted purchase receipt. So that was the process of how to receive on a PO. So now let's go to the next step, which is invoicing on a PO. So we're going to pretend that time marches on, and now we get an invoice from our vendor for what we've received. And so what we can do is create an invoice in the system to pay this vendor invoice we've received, and we're going to use the same PO. So I'm back now in Compass Nav, and I'm going to go to my purchase order list, and I'm going to pick up the purchase order for that vendor, and I'm going to press edit. Now the first thing I want to do is update my posting date to the actual date that I'm doing this invoicing. So let's say it's the 20th. And we actually have a vendor invoice number now, so we're going to update that too. So now what we do is we update our lines to reflect what we're being invoiced for. So it could be that we're not being invoiced for all 5 or all 4, but maybe we're just being invoiced for what we received. So we're going to put 2 and 2. And so now what we do is we're going to post, and we're just going to invoice. And what this is going to do, and you can do a post and print, by the way, sorry. The post and print is just going to generate you a printout of this, but I'm just doing post because I don't want the printout right now. So just so you know that that's available. And here I'm just going to invoice. And then when I'm posting this, what Compass Nav is doing is producing a ledger entry for the vendor of that posted purchase invoice. And so now what I'll do is, as I'm in the Acme company, just as a shortcut, I'll show you something new here. We can actually get to the vendor record from here using this hyperlink. And now I'm going to go to Navigate and Ledger Entries. So what you'll see on January 20th is my posted purchase invoice for this vendor. And I could navigate Look at the posted purchase invoice, and here's the 2 and the 2 that is ready to be paid by the AP clerk. Okay. Now, as a general note, you can receive an invoice as many times as you want until you reach the full quantity. Okay, and you can update your invoice numbers accordingly so that they're actually being posted with the vendor invoice number that you have. So they're probably going to invoice, since they've only invoiced you for the 2, they're probably going to invoice you for the rest that you receive at a later date, and that will be reflected in your vendor invoice number as you go along. Okay. Now, just so you know as well, purchase orders in this list will only appear in this list when there's still quantity to receive and quantity to invoice. Once you've reached quantity, like the full receiving and the full invoicing, as soon as you post that invoice through on from the PO and you've reached that full quantity of receiving and invoicing, it's going to disappear from the list. And where it actually goes is to an archive. And I'm going to show you where the archive is. What I do is I just search for archive here, and you're going to see purchase order archives. These are all the other purchase orders that are completed in the system, and this is where they remain till the end of time. And so if you ever are wanting to go back to a purchase order that's been fully received and fully invoiced, this is where you would come to pick that up. You could always double click on it and look at it to see this is my quantities that have been fully received and fully invoiced. This one, as an example, as you can see, is not fully received and fully, well, actually, quantity to receive and quantity invoice is complete, but I still have quantity here to receive. You can invoice POs at any time in the process. So I could be in the middle of a PO doing a receiving and then want to archive it right after that. It would come in here. But what I want to point out is it will automatically archive when it's fully received and fully invoiced. You don't actually need to do it yourself manually. So if you ever want more information on that or interested in that, feel free to let us know in Affinity Support. We'll be more than happy to help you with that. So that completes the process of invoicing from a PO. And now we're going to move on to returning product. And we're going to go through that step by step. Our flowchart shows us that we can return product at different stages. And if we were to return product at the point after we've received them, we'd have to reverse a sales receipt, or sorry, a purchase receipt. If we were to return product after it's been invoiced or paid, we would have to create a credit memo to reverse the posted invoice. So let's walk through each of these scenarios. What we'll do first is we'll process a return that's only been received that hasn't been invoiced yet. And sorry, before I go into that, what I want to show you is these are the scenarios that I just want to give you a high level. We're going to walk through each of them and then we'll come back and to the slide and review. So for a product that's been only received, we've got to ship this product back. By so doing, we're going to create a return order. Then finally, when our credit memo arrives, we're going to use a return shipment line. Now for product that's been received and invoiced, we're going to, if we just want to do everything together for the vendor credit, like if we want to process the shipment back as well as processing a credit memo to reverse the posted invoice, we're going to use a credit memo's functionality called get posted document lines to reverse, or we can actually manually enter a credit memo, and for that we need to put on the line the applies to item entry. Okay, so let me show you this process. And then I'll come back here so that it'll sink in a little better, and then we can move on from there. So now I need to create a return order. So I'm back in my purchase order processing, and I'm going to click on Purchase Return Orders, and here I'm going to create a new one. So a return order looks much like a purchase order, and the information you provide is actually very similar. So we're going to tab off to get a new number, and I'm going to choose my vendor number. So in this case, it was Acme Company. Now we're going to actually change the posting date to the transaction date if we need to. So this is like the day that we're returning it. So let's say it's the 22nd of January. And now on the invoicing tab, we're going to select the retail site dimension that received the product. And on the shipping tab, we're going to choose the location where our product physically is. And in this case, it's already defaulted to location 1 based on this vendor. So in the lines, we're going to select the item and specify the quantity being returned and the unit amount we'd expect to be credited from the vendor. Now, I just have to take a pause at this time. Please note that if this return involves any rebates from your vendor, there's actually other accounting implications to consider. So I'm not covering that in this webinar, but if you want more information on that, feel free to see our manual called Rebates and Standard Costing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put our item in that we're returning. And you can put the reason code here of what that is. Maybe it was just wrong. Maybe they gave us the wrong super plant that we were looking at. And here we're going to click on Apply to Item Ledger Entry. So this is actually going back to the item ledger entry of our super plant, and this is the one that I want to return. It's this purchase receipt, right? Because let's say we've only received 2 at this time, right? So we're going to choose that. We're going to say OK. So the purpose of doing this is just so that the system knows where to remove the inventory, okay? So that's a very important step. So once the line details are completed, we're going to ensure that all of our data is correct so we can review, we can run a statistics, okay, just to make sure, double check that everything's correct. Show more fields to make sure. And now we're going to post. And now what we're going to do is ship, because we're actually shipping it back. We're not doing any more than that. And so now it's going to remove the items from inventory and create a return shipment transaction. This is a return shipment document that is going to sit in the system, and it's going to wait there until we grab it again to match it to a credit memo that we receive from the vendor. So that's where we're going to step in now into the credit memo piece. So let's say we get the credit memo now from our vendor. We're going to create a new purchase credit memo. We're going to select our vendor. We're going to enter the credit memo number. And what we're going to do is we're going to use functions to get return shipment lines. And that's what we just generated, right? So here's our super plant for that item, the quantity of 2 that we returned. Okay, and you'll notice here return quantity shipped but not invoiced. So it's actually telling us we haven't actually invoiced this yet. So we're going to select that, and you'll notice here that our lines automatically populated. From here, we can double check the statistics again to make sure everything's posting correctly, that there's no glaring errors here. And then we can post. Or post and print. Again, it's up to you. It's one or the other, depending if I'm going to print out or not, but I'm just going to post. Okay, so what I just showed you was the scenario to the left of the screen here where the product's only been received. At that point, if you've only received it, you're going to ship it back by creating a return order. And then when you do eventually get the credit memo, you're going to use the get return shipment lines to process. So now in the event, here's another scenario where let's say you've received and you've already invoiced and paid the vendor, or not even paid, let's just say you've even invoiced, but the result is you have a posted invoice. What we're going to go through is we're going to use on the credit memo the get posted document lines to reverse, or we can manually enter the credit memo. So I'll walk you through both ways of returning product in the event that you already have received and have a posted invoice that may have been paid for that vendor. All right, so here I am in a credit memo I've created for our vendor. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to return our fertilizer item that we're going to return that back, and we've already received and we've already invoiced. So the function I want to show you here is on the actions ribbon. It's called get posted document lines to reverse. And so this is going to list all of the posted invoices. And what's really important here is that we flag the return original quantity. What this does is it will actually allow you to return quantity that you may have actually already sold. But it also allows you to return quantity from the full, from the full original quantity that you've originally ordered, right? So it's not just taking what's remaining, it's taking the full quantity that you've had. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for, I like sorting with the latest at the top, so it's a little bit easier to find. So you'll see here that here's my January 20th order for the fertilizer bag, and I had 2 bags. Okay, so that's what I'm going to select, and I'm going to press OK. And what it does is it populates my credit memo lines. It's actually pulling from that posted invoice. It just saves me time manually entering everything in. Okay? And what you'll notice that's very important is the apply to item entry is actually has a value here. That's very important because what that does is it's going to tie this credit memo back to the invoice, the posted invoice, and reverse it all out. And from there, your return, like your receipts and all that are also going to be reversed. So that's what that function is. At this point, what you would do is post or post and print. It's up to you. Now, what I'd like to show you as well is how to manually enter this. So really what manually entering would mean, oh, and again, sorry, you have to remember your posting date is up to date, right? So let's do that first. Whoops, there. Okay, and we need a credit memo number in our header. So now I would do item, I'd find my fertilizer bag. Goodness, was it 50 or 25? I'll have to see. I'll know I have the right one if when I do, this applies to item entry. So here it is. So I'm actually going to be returning what I had already received on the 16th. And you'll notice that populates. And from here, I could post my credit memo. Okay. So what we just looked at is what takes care of the right side of this page of these scenarios here. So I showed you what the get posted document lines to reverse is and how that saves you data entry time. Or if you don't like that, you could still manually enter your credit memo according to the vendor credit memo you have in front of you. But you would have to use the applies to item entry on the line to make sure that your credit memo is going to reverse that posted invoice. It's going to link back right to that posted invoice that was done previously. So now I'm going to step into quickly just to see what the GL entries are when you receive an invoice. This may be of interest to you, just in case you're curious. When I receive product, what hits the GL, and when I'm invoicing the product from the PO, what is hitting there. So what's happening here is you're When you're receiving, you're debiting your inventory interim and you're crediting your inventory accrual. And when you're invoicing, you're now offsetting the original entries from your receiving, and now the product's actually getting put into inventory, and you're paying your taxes on that. And AP is then going to send that payment out to the vendor. So just really high level, thought you might be interested in what's happening with the GL entries as we're walking through this process. So now we're at one of my favorite parts of webinars, which is common support issues. Again, this is an opportunity for us to tell you about issues that we've experienced from you, that you've brought to our attention, and that we've helped resolve with you. Today I'm just going to show you one issue, and that has to do with the item being FIFO, and the return that I've done is causing an issue with my item cost. And this happens, well, let me explain here. When you're returning the product, what's happening is that the latest item that was purchased is actually being chosen rather than the original item from when you sold it, right? So FIFO isn't really being honored when you're returning. You're actually returning product that maybe was the last one out, or, and not the first one out. So the way to resolve this is when you're populating your credit memo for your return, you need to use the get posted document lines to reverse, which is what I had just shown you, and ensure that the return original quantity is flagged on. I briefly touched on this when I was explaining the function, but here's a picture of it so you can see. So what happens is you need to use return original quantity. Make sure that's flagged on, because what it's going to do is allow you, it's going to update the lines here and allow you to choose the it's going to allow you to choose the posted invoice, the original, invoice of which this was all received against, right? And then you'll be able to um, actually get to the quantities, like the actual inventory items that were sold to that customer, bring those back at the same cost. So if you want more detail on that, feel free to give us a call. I could take a lot more time explaining that process, but that is the gist of it. You need to make sure the return original quantity is here so that when you're posting your credit memo, it's going to go back to those quantities that you're returning, that you originally sold to your customer. So that's our webinar. That's our conclusion. What we did today was we looked at processing purchase orders. We went through an overview. We looked at the page. We received and invoiced on that PO. We did returns and various scenarios around returns. Those are the manuals that we touched on today. And again, we looked really quickly at the GL entries that are posted during receiving and invoicing. And we took a quick look at an issue we had in support so far on returning product to your vendor, which you've already sold to your customer. So I hope you had a great webinar. That's all for our webinar on purchase order processing today. I trust that you found it useful and insightful. Thank you very much for taking the time to join me today. If you have any ideas, future topics you'd like us to cover in our Affinity webinar series, feel free to let us know. You can reach us by email or by phone. As you can see here on our screen, our team is here to serve you. Thank you again for joining me, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.